Have you ever wanted to listen to two random dudes on the internet talk about their views?
Well, I'm Matt.
And I'm Bill.
And this is the Two Dudes with a View podcast. Hello everyone, welcome back to episode 12 of the Two Dudes with a View podcast. As always, my name is Matt and I am joined by the old man Bill. How's it going, Bill?
Not too bad. Looking forward to sun and warm weather.
It was the warmest day of the year in New York here. We topped out at officially without the whatever they call it. The real feel, but officially it was like 91, I think is what I saw it was. Obviously with real feel it was a lot warmer than that, but it was the official warmest day in my area, at least here in New York today. All sun, and then it's been downpouring ever since about 4:30, 5 o'clock.
Whenever it's not raining, it was hot.
Yeah.
But then it rained 3 times, so it rained, and then it got hot and muggy, and then everything dried out, and then it rained again, and it just got hot and muggy, and then it rained again, and it was like, this is ridiculous.
Yeah, no, I mean, it started raining at right around 5 o'clock. A little bit before, but right around 5 o'clock, and it hasn't stopped since. And it's expected to go all through the night with not just rain, but thunderstorms, like ground-shaking, house-shaking thunderstorms, which is great. It's all right. I like sleeping through thunderstorms. Just
me too, because I hate thunder. I mean, is that crazy? That's something that it's always been my whole life. I have this hatred for thunder, almost like a fear of thunder. Out of the entire equation, the rain can kill you. The lightning can kill you. The wind can kill you. It can throw stuff on you.
The thunder
is... one thing that can't hurt you is the one thing I don't like.
The thunder is just the warning before all that.
Yeah, but that's the one thing that spooks me out is just the thunder. I don't know.
We got to get you one of those vests that they get animals when they're scared of the thunder. When those thunder vests, just get you one of those. You can wear that.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always been that way, and I have no reason to explain why. It's not like I go shoot guns. I can handle bangs and stuff, but thunder just has this weird thing. I don't know what it is.
Well, I mean, I know what my Christmas present is for you. It's a thunder vest. Even though I got 6 months, and I'll probably forget that. Someone remind me, would you? Thank you. Appreciate that.
We could be thunder buddies. I can't believe I just said that. I can't believe I just said that.
Yeah, I'm good. I'm good. If anyone wants to be Bill's Thunder Buddy, hit him up on Discord. He's accepting applications. You can also email him.
Send me a message on Discord that just says Thunder Buddy +1. We could have the Thunder Squad.
Oh, just stop.
I can't believe I even just said that.
Oh, boy. How many beers you got in you? Because it's clearly not enough.
3. That's bad. 3. Only 3.
Oh, boy.
But I got a bunch more to go.
This is not good.
It'll be a good one.
Clearly. Anywho, in today's episode, we are going to be staying in one place the entire time. And by that, I mean we're going to be staying with the Supreme Court the entire time. Because this last week has been nothing but interesting, and I really don't know if there's any other politically correct word to start besides interesting out of there. 2 major decisions. We're going to start with the lesser of the two, I would assume. Still a major decision, but we're going to start with the lesser of the two and then progressively get worse and more politically incorrect, I guess, is going to be what it's going to be. But we're not going to spend a horrible amount of time on the first one here because we want to save time for the second one, and I think you know where we're going with that. But we want to start with the decision that came out last technically last week when you hear this, came out of the Supreme Court about the New York gun law. It came out Thursday. Now, there was a case in the Supreme Court known as the New York State Rifle and Pistol Association versus Bruin. And essentially, all this case was saying that New York's law requiring those who are applying for a pistol permit needed, quote, proper cause to carry a firearm outside of their home. That's essentially what it was, saying New York's law cited that you need a proper cause to carry your firearm concealed outside of your home. And basically all it was that if you had a license, you could not carry concealed if you had, I think they called it the restricted mark or whatever on that license, meaning you can't carry concealed into a store or to a business that allows it. Obviously, places like banks and schools. I wouldn't carry a firearm even if concealed into those because that's, federal prison time, but I digress there. Essentially, it was saying you can't carry into these establishments concealed if you didn't have proper cause and the appropriate marks on the license. Well, Supreme Court in a 6-3 decision ruled that it violated not only the Second Amendment, but the 14th Amendment as well. And for those of you who don't know your amendments, obviously the Second Amendment we all know is the right to bear arms. The 14th Amendment states that, quote, essentially it's the Equal Protection and Equal Rights Amendment. Clarence Thomas actually wrote the majority opinion here for the 6-3 court. And he stated in there, and I found this interesting, and specifically relating to the 14th Amendment, he said, quote, "This law prevents law-abiding citizens with ordinary self-defense needs from exercising their right to keep and bear arms, as authorized by the Second Amendment." So, I mean, that one sentence technically covers both amendments there, but, yeah. And that law got struck down, obviously, in New York. It's now being questioned. I think there was like 7 states total, excluding New York, that have similar laws, including the District of Columbia, that are now being looked into if they're legal under this new precedent and this new ruling. So it'll be interesting to see, especially what happens in like Washington, D.C., if some laws get changed there. But this comes just, what was it, 2 weeks now after the Buffalo shooting at Tops? I think it's 2 weeks. So yeah, I mean, it's definitely changed gun ownership for those applying. So for those of you that live in New York, you know how hard it is to get a pistol permit. Specifically for this reason here, and now it's going to be a lot easier. So, Bill, I want to hear your thoughts on this, just kind of see where you stand before we go any further. Because I know literally every Democratic politician in this state, including the New York City Mayor Eric Adams and the Governor Kathy Hochul, have both spoken out vigorously on this, specifically dating to the Buffalo shooting. I know President Biden spoke out about this. I wasn't sure if he had hit his head while falling off the bike yet or not when he spoke about this. It was kind of hard to understand him, but I digress there too. So, Bill, what's your thoughts on this ruling and this entire law here?
So I'm kind of confused. Not really confused. I guess maybe confused is a good word too. But so you can't force somebody to have a permit to carry a concealed weapon, but there's a concealed carry permit.
No, you need a permit to carry a concealed weapon. That's not what this case was dealing with. This case was dealing with the proper cause section of that permit. So in New York and also other states, as I've read, in order to you can get a concealed carry permit, right? You can get a pistol permit to own pistols. However, to carry concealed into businesses, places like that obviously allow it, again, excluding places like banks and schools and whatnot. In order to carry concealed, you needed proper cause in order to do that, in order to get that part of the license. So you could get a pistol permit and still buy pistols, right? New York State isn't a open carry state. You can't just walk around with a firearm, unfortunately. So you would have to, obviously, if you wanted to transport them, they'd have to be in the appropriate areas and whatnot. If you didn't have the concealed carry, but in order to get a concealed carry permit, you had to show proper cause that you needed it. For instance, you carried, you worked night shifts, and then you were also the closer and took the bank deposit home, right? That would be a reason that the state would see that you say, oh yeah, I need a concealed carry to protect however much money. Or I'm a off-duty police officer. That's a proper cause. I carry a gun normally. Why can't I carry concealed? That type of stuff. That was the only thing, was the restriction to get a concealed carry permit has pretty much now been removed. So where you could, any person 21 or older could get a pistol permit, to get a concealed carry permit was like a tenth of the chance to get a actual permit. Now you can pretty much get a concealed carry permit no matter what at this point. That's what this dealt with.
Right, so here's my thought on this. And this is probably a little crazy, but, it is what it is. So, imagine this. You're going to go in and shoot up a store.
Yep.
But, well, before we do this, before we get to that point, let's get to this point. We're going to use you in both examples, but you're going to be the good guy and the bad guy, so this is kind of okay. Imagine you go and apply for a job at a store.
Okay.
And they say, here's the appropriate stuff to wear to work. Don't bring no knives, no guns, no weapons, nothing like that to work.
Yep.
Okay, so now you start your job, you go about your day, and then somebody like you're going to be the bad guy now, comes in with a gun. This can be applied anywhere, in school, in church, in anywhere in the world, I guess, or anywhere in the country, any business, anything that. But anyway. So then somebody that's the bad guy comes in with a gun, starts shooting up people, starts killing employees and customers and all this other happy stuff. Now there's dead people and you're going to jail or you're going to die. So now if we take this back and say, all right, Matt, here's, your application's been accepted. You're going to start work tomorrow. Here's the dress code. If you have a pistol and you have a permit to carry it, please bring it to work with you for the safety of employees and customers alike. And then somebody, we're going to go back to you as the bad guy, comes in and starts shooting. Now, you're allowed, because the company said you could, to bring this gun to work with you. You could shoot the bad guy, kill the bad guy or injure him or whatever, and stop the shooting and save lives. But now, because everybody's so, look, I don't agree with all this whole shooting up schools and churches, and that's ridiculous. But could you imagine in a school, if the teachers, as long as they meet the requirement by law, they carry a gun? You have a bunch of teachers in a school. If a bunch of them have guns, you could eliminate the school resource officer, because if something pops off, you got a mini army ready to come out and handle some business. And they're going to protect. So those kids that are now locked in that room, that teacher with a gun will be the first line of defense if that person makes it through that door. But now they can't, because, you're not allowed to do it. It's going to come to a point where teachers are going to be armed. Grocery store employees, the guy checking you out at Walmart and scanning your stuff, he's probably going to have a pistol on him. And I think they should. I think everybody that is allowed to have a gun, I think businesses need to say, If you have a permit, you could bring it. If you don't bring it. And then there's going to be those people with the same thought is going to be like, well, if you're letting them bring it, then that's just enabling them to start the shooting because they have the gun on them already. No, because they're law-abiding citizens to start off with. They're probably, if they were going to shoot up some places, they would do it anytime.
Yeah. Well, okay, there's a lot to unpack there. So let me start by that saying I'm with you on the fact that stores, businesses, all that, I fully support concealed carry and the ability to have a firearm on you at any point. And I think that's kind of what we saw out of this case specifically. And with that line that I read from Thomas saying that law-abiding citizens, which for the most part, everything, up to the point of getting a concealed carry permit, you've pretty much had to prove that you're a law-abiding citizen, right? You can't have felonies, you can't even have misdemeanors, let alone, I guess you can have non-violent misdemeanors. But you've proven that you're pretty much a law-abiding citizen up to that point. So he's clearly made that saying, if they're a law-abiding citizen, we can't restrict them. Now, if they're not a law-abiding citizen, they've kind of hinted here that we can definitely restrict those. But I mean, if they're a law-abiding citizen, why not let them carry concealed? Where the issue comes in, and I've heard about this and dealt with this, not dealt with it personally, but had close friends and family have to deal with this, is if you bring a concealed carry firearm into a store, right, and you're working there, and something does happen like the top shooting that we saw in Buffalo, and you happen to, have a firearm on you, you pull that out, and you shoot in the direction of the suspect, but the suspect moves at the last second, and your bullet goes by and hits an innocent bystander. Now the store is actually liable as well for the fact that you brought that firearm in because they said you could, and you could carry it while you were working. Which is why I think some of these large chains don't do that, and the fact that they don't want to pay liability insurance or take that liability, because we all know large companies, they want for-profit stuff. They don't want to deal with all of these extra hoops and all that they have to jump through. They don't want to deal with that. So why would they take that additional liability? But then again, we also saw on the point of the Buffalo shooting where there was an armed security guard there, just retired from the Buffalo police. Shot the dude, did absolutely nothing though because the guy was wearing, heavy armor plate. So, I mean, granted, in most cases that would have done something, but there are a lot of cases out there like this one where they're wearing heavy armor of some sort and it's not going to do anything. So, we get stores and businesses are also going to weigh that like, well, this just happened in Buffalo, so it didn't do anything, so why should we even try at this point, right? Like that, they're gonna throw that argument out there.
So, I don't know where I heard this at, and I wish I could remember because I would definitely say, I don't know if it was like a congressman, a representative, a news anchor. I don't remember who the hell even said it. But it was basically said was this is if I'm in a place. And this is, I'm going to paraphrase what this person said, is if I'm in a place that there's no cops and somebody comes in shooting, I would love for somebody to be able to pull out a gun and defend me as opposed to here we are just sitting ducks.
Oh, yeah, I'm 100% with you on that. It's just these companies, again, they don't want to pay the liability insurance. They don't want to take the risk of the liability because it's their name on it as well, right? You can see it now. Walmart employee shoots unarmed man by accident after trying to take out suspect. You can see it now, and then Walmart's going to get, or say they're going to get bad press from it, and then it's just, they're not going to want to take that liability. Which, I mean, I guess is understandable, but in the same aspect, like you're saying, in the end of the day, I would rather have someone, or 1, 2, 10, however many people there are carrying, I'd rather have them just pop up and say, "Hit, not today," bam, right? Like, it seems like a better viable option.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I can see it both ways because if I owned a business, I would allow my employees, like if I owned a store or something like that, and you came to apply for me, to work for me, and you had even if it was you had a holster on your side, like there's ways around it. There could be, um, okay, so if you put cameras up on your house and report that to your insurance, your premium, your homeowner's insurance will go down.
Yeah.
Because now you have something to prove if something goes wrong.
Yep.
So if businesses start putting like, okay, here's your uniform shirt. Oh, you have a gun permit. You have a gun on you. If you're bringing your gun to work with you, make sure that you have this badge on or this pin on, right? And that could be just to let even another customer know, hey, if something goes wrong, go find the guy with this pin or this color shirt because he's probably going to be your best line of defense. I can also see it the other way is if, somebody breaks into a store or comes into a store and starts shooting and you pull out your gun and shoot and hit an innocent person, odds are that person's probably already shot or going to be shot. Now, it doesn't make it right that you shoot him because shit happens. You could miss. But the thing with like shooters that go into these places, if you watch videos on it and you watch the diagrams they draw up of this is how the person moved, they stay in one spot for a decent amount of time. Like if you're going to start opening fire, you're not just walking indiscriminately shooting for most of it. You're going to pick a spot that's concentrated with people and you're going to start trying to shoot as many of them as you can before you haul ass.
Yeah.
And that's where the person with the gun, if they're even if it's a store, if they're like 3 or 4 aisles over, they got time to aim. You shouldn't, if you're carrying a gun and you have a pistol permit and you have a concealed carry permit, you've gone through the training, you know how to do it. You're not going to shoot like a gangster.
See, that's the issue though, is they're not going through training. In New York, in order for you to get your pistol permit, you have to go through a safety class. That's it. It's not here you have to pass, you have to actually fire the weapon and aim the weapon and get a certain score. You don't have to do that. You literally just have to sit through a class where someone reads out of a textbook and then gives you, signs off on your paperwork. Then you submit that, and the county judge obviously looks it over and goes through all the paperwork on that end, does all the background checks, so on and so forth. There's no actual qualifications to any of it.
Well, as much faith as I don't have in the government, regardless who's in charge, I think then like this whole gun control thing that they're doing, I kind of agree with it, but I also disagree with it because you can try to get guns away from the bad guys. Will always get the guns. That's how it is. The good guys, you're going to take the guns away from the good guys, and then when the bad guys show up, now they're screwed. But instead of trying to come up with ways to get guns away from people, why don't you come up with a way that make the guns safer for the people? So do a federal law and say that, if you have a concealed carry permit, if you have a pistol permit, you have to, or even say in order to get one, you have to go through this 1 week in class training. And then there's going to be a practical application test at the end. And if you pass both the in-class and the practical application, ta-da, here's your permit. Now we can send you out into the normal people things and know with relative confidence that if some shit pops off and you pull that gun out, you know what to do. It's much like the military. They don't just hand dudes guns and say, all right, go over there and kill the guy with the rag on his head. They don't do that. They go through shooting courses, and there's practical application before they actually go to war. Unless it's like back in the day when they did the draft. Then it was, you're going to war, here's a gun, good luck.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing I see with that, I do think that there needs to be, honestly, it'd be helpful for probably everyone involved, including the person that's getting the permit, some sort of qualifying test. The only issue I see with that is at that point you become, the and there's going to be issues with it regardless because of the whole fact, but people who can't take off or are limited on funding and can't take these courses, so on and so forth, because obviously they're going to get you an arm and a leg because they don't want you having guns, so they're already charging a lot for it's like I don't know how many hours it is, but whatever the safety course is now is like $350 to take, and it's like a 4-hour course. It's not that long, and there's going to be the issue with, well, now at this point we're restricting it to people who can't afford it, and then there's going to be another lawsuit saying, well, you really can't do this because you're restricting access to people and so on and so forth because of funding, blah, 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 blah. And then that's, again, just going to be another lawsuit. We're going to circle the wagons the entire time all over again because of that. That's the only issue I see with it, but, I mean, I'm for some sort of whatever you want to call it, qualification, certification test, whatever you want to call it. I mean, it'd probably be helpful for both, the people that didn't grow up around firearms and didn't, weren't brought up by going out and starting with a pellet gun and shooting squirrels in the backyard up until hunting and all that. It'd be helpful for sure, and probably worth it in the end of the day.
Now I'm a little bit older than you, but this is how my school was. Ready? There was a sex ed course that taught you everything you needed to know about sex, proper sex, like having safe sex, all this stuff. There was also driver's education, and the driver's education taught you how to drive a car even before you were allowed to get a permit. Like it taught you all the basic stuff. And there's hunter's education courses. But the hunter's education courses aren't in school. No. They're after school. They're like when you're going to get your when you're getting a hunting license, you have to have your hunter's education card before you can get a hunting license. Why can't they just enact some stuff in schools where they do like gun safety in school?
Well, I will say this, and this is one thing that it's not New York State funded, obviously. But it is a New York, I guess, program, whatever you want to call it. Going back to what you said, driver's education now, in order to get a license, at least in New York, you need to either take a 5-hour course or driver's education, one or the other, between the time you get your permit and 6 months, because there's a 6 months waiting period before you can actually take your road test after you get your permit. So you have to take either driver's education or a 5-hour course. Like you said, hunting permit, you have, or a hunting license, you have to take your hunter's education course. In New York, there's a bow hunter's education course as well before you can get your bow hunting license. There's a gun license I forget what the actual name of it, but it's essentially the same thing as a hunter's license for firearms. There's all kinds of stuff, like you said. So yeah, I mean, why can't there be something? But like I said, there's New York programs, and it's actually happening around me a lot. Obviously not so much downstate, but where schools, the school district that 2 houses down the road from me, 3 houses down the road from me is the next school district over. They got a rifle team in school. It's a class that they take in school. And then they travel the country, specifically northeast, because that's where we are. But they do go out of state and out west, competing in rifle range type stuff and qualifications. So they do have that, and they also started. This is kind of a new thing in the last couple of years. And actually, the sportsman club that I'm a part of does it for a local school district. They do trap leagues for the school, so it's like a sport. You go every day after school to the club, and you practice for X amount of time, and then every week or every twice a week, whatever it is, you actually do a match against other schools for trap, shooting firearms, so on and so forth. Obviously, it teaches firearm safety there. It's not a mandatory thing. And quite frankly, I don't think it should be because, again, not everyone is going to own a firearm in their life. Some people just hate it, and that's respectable. I mean, that's you can't argue with someone not wanting to own a firearm if they just don't want to. But they do have that type of stuff around here. It's getting popular, but it's still kind of rare in the fact that it's not everywhere. And I was actually surprised the club that I'm a part of, the school district they do it for is actually not a city school, but it's a suburban school district with, bordering the largest city in the area and all of central New York, really. And they were the first ones in my area to jump on it, and they're doing great. They love it. The kids love it. They haven't this is only the second year they've done it, but it's working out great in the end. And I mean, it's teaching gun safety, but again, it's essentially a sport, so not everyone's required to do it. And I don't think, again, everyone should be required to do it because not everyone's going to own a gun. But it's definitely a program that's helpful out there.
Well, and that's the thing, right? If your people aren't being forced to do it, the one argument that I guarantee a lot of schools are going to say is, since it's not required, we can't afford to do it through our budget. And that would be a very reasonable argument. Like, hey, I live in an area that the kids just don't care about guns, and they don't care. So, but we have to have this program because the federal government says that we have to educate people on gun safety.
Yeah, well,
but here's how it could go. Like, so school districts get grants from the state. Mm-hmm. The state gets grants from the federal government, and that's how it's a trickle-down effect. The state gets the money from the feds, then they allocate that money accordingly through the education budgets and all these things that states have. So if the federal government, and this is why this won't happen, is the federal government would have to set aside X amount of millions or billions of dollars a year to fund programs in school districts that don't even need it. So if you live in, Tickletown, and everybody in Tickletown is just a big old bunch of goofs, and they don't really care about guns, and all they care about is cars, and they're more worried about driver's education than they are gun safety, you still have to fund it to have it there for that one person that might want it.
Yeah.
But then that falls down to the taxpayers, because now we're going to have to pay higher taxes in order to have that money in the government to send to the schools. You can't win.
Here's what I think needs to happen. I'll leave it at this because I want to get to this next topic. I think we do it very similarly to how we do motor vehicles and whatnot. Again, in New York State, you either have to take a 5-hour course, or you go to a business. Essentially, that's all they do. You go to a business, and you sit there and let someone lectures for 5 hours, and you have to take and pass a test at the end. Or you have to take driver's education, which is, for me at least in my district and around me, there was 2 classes of it before school started. So you'd get there at like 6 a.m., be like 6 to 7:30. The first portion would essentially be the 5-hour course where you actually sit there and learn the exact same stuff. The second portion is you actually go out and drive. And then there would be an evening class right after school. It was 2:30 to 4. So it's the same amount of time, 2 courses being offered. And again, you had to take either or. I think what needs to happen, but again, it's not at every school district that does that. It's like a sport, essentially, right? Not every school district. My school district didn't have men's volleyball, but the neighboring district to me did. So it was just kind of, not everyone offers the same stuff. So do it like that, where in order to get a pistol permit, right, you have to either takes this education course in school, like whatever you want to call it, gun safety, whatever you want to call it, where it's like driver's education. Not every place has to offer it, but if they want to, they can. Or you have to sit and take the equivalent in a course that a business officers offers, whether it be a 5-hour course, whatever. Again, there's a safety course that they have to take now, but that pretty much that doesn't go through a lot of the gun stuff because you can't actually buy the gun before you have the permit. So it just goes through the basics of the laws and stuff like that, and the basics of the safety of a pistol and all that fun stuff. But it doesn't actually. There's no hands-on practical, uses and skills of it. So make it where there's a safety course with some sort of qualification test that you have to do, and the equivalent in a school program where it's the exact same thing. Now, the only issue and concern I can see here is that in most states you have to be 21 in order to buy a handgun. You're well out of school by the time you're, high school at least. You're usually 17, 18, 19 when you're graduating high school, depending on how many years you failed. You might be 21 in some cases, depends. But you're usually out of school. So even if you make it a college level thing or, something like that, again, you're going to have that option though for schools that don't want to offer some sort of course like this or whatever. And even if they're not teaching pistols in school, because again, you can buy, a shotgun or a rifle at 18, can't buy a handgun until 21. So even if they're just teaching basic firearm safety as a senior, it's still better than nothing in the end of the day. And again, it's an optional thing because not everyone's going to want to take it. Like not everyone wants to drive in the world. Just how it is. I don't see why they would not want to drive, but that's their choice. So I don't know. Who knows? There's going to be no real answer at this point because there's always going to be something that backfires.
Yeah. So before we move on, I just want to say that because you said about the whole being 21 to get a pistol, and so here in PA, this is, and I don't know why it's like this. I think it's stupid, and hopefully they change it, but you only have to register pistols. So like, we went to get the wife a gun a few years ago, and she got a hunting rifle. All they did was a background check on her. So the gun isn't registered. It's just they just did a background check on her to see if they can make the sale. So the only thing you need here in Pennsylvania is, or the only two things that need to be registered through the government here in PA is pistols and automatic weapons. So I could go, in theory, to the store, or anybody could go to a gun shop, buy a shotgun or a hunting rifle, and give it to somebody else because it's not. So if I bought a hunting rifle and gave it to you as a Christmas gift, it's not registered to neither one of us. If they find the gun, they run the serial number, it'll come back to, okay, this was bought by Bill at this gun shop, and they ran a background check and everything came up clean. That's all that goes into. That gun's not registered to any person. But again, that falls back to the whole bullshit of it doesn't matter as long as a registered gun. As long as there's robberies and house break-ins, there's always going to be guns on the streets.
Oh, 100%. And just to wrap that up on your thing, handguns and again assault weapons, whatever classification they have on assault, I don't even know, have to be registered. But yeah, the only difference is, I mean, I can give you, it's obviously it's gonna, if I buy a firearm, a shotgun, a rifle, whatever it is, and gift it to you, obviously there's got to be a paper trail of that. So the state will have that paper trail of, hey, I sold this to this person. But yeah, again, there's always going to be something. Always going to be something, and it's one thing after another.
Criminals are the smartest people in the world. They'll always find a way around the law.
Yep. And by making more laws, you're just essentially hurting the law-abiding citizens in a way.
Yeah.
That's it. But anywho, okay, we spent a little bit more time than we wanted to on that, but it is what it is, and you know.
And that's okay, because this next one here's a touchy subject for a lot of people, so it's good that we're only going to spend 20 minutes on it, because we're going to offend some of you and we're going to make some of you happy, and there's no way around it. That's just what it is.
Yeah, unfortunately, and I'm going to say this blanketly, anything the Supreme Court does, and we could say it with the gun law we just talked about, anything we did with the Supreme Court, or anything that comes out of the Supreme Court, any opinion, is going to offend one side, piss them off, and make one side happy. That's just how it is. And regardless, before I say and continue on, the Supreme Court is essentially there not to make laws, but to rule on whether they're constitutional or not. And that's essentially what they've done since its creation. And some of you will say, well, they failed in some cases, and some of you will say they've succeeded in some cases. And that's just, again, opinions on every side, and opinions are like assholes. Everyone has one.
Yep, some just stink more than others.
Exactly. So we'll get into this. This is... It's a touchy subject for me, for Bill, and for pretty much everyone. And we discussed it, episode 6, I believe it was. Wow, that actually kind of worked out weird. 6 episodes in, we touched on it, and then 6 more episodes, we touched on it again. Anywho, we touched on this before when this initially kind of came to light and was being argued, and that's the fact of Roe v. Wade. Now, we all know what it is, so I'm not going to go into a history lesson here, because we all know what it is, and if you have to do more research, by all means, pause here and go do that. But it came out that the Supreme Court, again, in a 6-3 opinion, overturned Roe v. Wade. Now, what does that mean? Before we get into opinions here, essentially what that means is the fact that the Supreme Court said that Roe v. Wade and the right to an abortion was not a constitutional right. However, that doesn't mean it's illegal federally. What that means is that it's up to the individual states to make a decision on whether they want to make it illegal, keep it legal, restrict it in some form, so on and so forth. That's essentially what happened here. Again, they didn't make it illegal in the United States. They just said that what happened in the actual Roe v. Wade case was not constitutional, and they overturned that. That's pretty much all they did here, and they left it up to the states to make the decision. Now, what the states do, we already know, like Louisiana, for instance, as soon as that opinion came out, they had already had a law that was signed that essentially took effect as soon as the opinion came out. We already knew states like that were going to happen, which I still don't understand how they can do that, but that's a conversation for a different day.
Well, it's as simple. It's called a trigger law.
Yeah,
it just
it's a
means
trigger
law. There's a law on the books that if the federal government changes their law, this law automatically triggers and it becomes law in the state.
Yeah, which to me just seems weird, because you never know what's going to happen with the federal side. They could have said, yeah, well, some aspect. Anywho, that's for a different conversation later day. Just weird. So I want to loosely get into our opinions here, Bill, and not piss everyone off. It's bound to happen at some point. And honestly, I don't know your opinion on this. We talked about it a while ago. I don't remember much of it, to be honest with you. That was 6 weeks ago. I had to do math. I failed math, but it was 6 weeks ago, so I don't really remember. And we really didn't deep dive into it. We're not going to deep dive here, but I do want to kind of get your opinion on this ruling, and obviously I'll give mine here shortly, but what are your thoughts on this, and where do you stand with the entire situation from Roe v. Wade initially to where we are now?
All right, so this is just me being old. So And also, just to let everybody know that's listening to this. This episode will come out in just about 7 hours. We're recording this Sunday night, late ass Sunday night. But my thoughts on this are this: is all lives should matter, regardless. But with that being said, there was also a statement made by Ronald Reagan. And this could be applied to a bunch of different situations, not just Roe v. Wade, not just abortion rights. But for this instance, he said it directly for that. He said the ones that care the most about abortion rights are the ones that are already born.
Yeah, I mean, that's accurate.
Right, so that means people that are saying they like it or they don't like it, regardless where you stand, you are doing it because you were not aborted. Now, your opinion could change over the course of your life 100 times on one subject. I don't agree that a woman doesn't have the right to abort a child that's unwanted. I don't think that anybody should be able to tell that woman they can't do that, because if they get raped, if there's, a case of incest or whatever the case may be, an accidental pregnancy, they didn't mean to get pregnant, they should have the right to abort that child. But I also don't think that the federal government should say you have you can just go anywhere you want and kill people. But so for people that don't like the verdict in Roe v. Wade, here's your only option is there's no law that says you have to, like, I live in a state that supports abortion. But if somebody here wants to, now that it's been overturned, wants to get an abortion, they could just go to another state and get an abortion. There's no law that says you have to keep the baby in the state that you live in until it's born. You can go wherever you want because you have the right to seek medical advice. And if you want to go get medical advice somewhere else, you can. And the government don't need to know because they enacted a little law called the HIPAA law. Well,
two things. I want to jump in here before I let you continue. So you actually brought up something I want to bring up too, and I'm glad you did. That's, I guess, not necessarily my biggest argument. It's one of my arguments where I live in New York, where it's fully legal to get an abortion for any reason, right? Say someone from Louisiana, because we already talked about them, wants to come up and get one. There's no law stopping them, right? And I watched a interview by a couple of trial lawyers who have dealt with Supreme Court cases, not necessarily related to abortion, but the question was posed was, can a state like Texas, Louisiana, Florida, or any other that wants to make it illegal to get an abortion in that state for specific reasons, can they enact a law saying if you cross state lines to get an abortion, be arrested? Well,
I would say no, because that has to be a federal thing, because at that point, then it's like...
Hold on. The answer that came out of that was there is a act in the federal government that allows for interstate travel, that allows for interstate commerce, and that allows you to freely travel state to state for any reason. If I want to hop on a plane right now or in a car right now and fly to Florida, California, Alaska, Hawaii, I can without no questions asked. Obviously, I'm not a felony or a felon, so, there's no questions asked. And that was the answer, was they believe no, because of the fact that we have that interstate travel ability and the ability to, like you said, go elsewhere for medical reasons. Granted, I've seen stories where people can't get medical treatment here in the United States, so they fly to Dubai or, India or wherever to get medical treatment from a doctor over there who's the best in the world at it. Nothing preventing that. So even if they do say, well, you can't travel out of state to get one, well, I'm just going to fly to India and get it, right? Or I'm going to fly to Europe or China or wherever it is. I probably wouldn't go to China, but you know what I'm saying? just and again, before I get into my thing here, and I'll let you continue. You're not going to stop abortions. You're just going to stop the safe ones. It's cliche and everyone says it, but it's true, right? You know, it's like saying, you know, you're not going to stop suspects that get shot with guns and run away. They're going to just go to some back alley, surgeon that's going to pull it out for $10, right? They're not going to go to a hospital. If they're smart enough, they're not going to go to the hospital. 'Cause that's how they get caught, right? They're not going to go, they're just going to go to some back alley clinic that's offering them for a couple $100, and it's going to be unsafe. It's the same situation here. But I'll let you continue and finish your thoughts here before I jump back in, Bill.
My biggest concern is anytime something like this happens, regardless what political side you're on, there's always some kind of stupid protest. Like, I'm not saying protesting is stupid, but as soon as this was done, a guy climbed to the top of a bridge in D.C. and threatened to jump because Roe v. Wade was overturned. Well, I don't know why a guy was doing that, because we don't even have a dog in the fight. We have nothing to do with an abortion. That's a woman's right. But people need to stop taking shit so seriously, right? Like, okay, it was overturned. Whatever. The federal government can still enact laws that are federal laws to protect things like this. Instead of saying, oh, I don't agree with it, MAGA, 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 and then throw a fit and start acting like a bunch of fools in the middle of the goddamn street, go to the polls in November and vote for a Democrat. Or if you're a Republican and you agree with it and you want more of that, go to the polls in November and vote for a Republican. I don't understand why people got to act so goddamn stupid. If you don't like it, change it. You have the power to do so. That's what they tell us. But doing all this stupid stuff, like there was a thing I seen about, how much money gets raised after people die by any organization. How much? And they said that statistically speaking, if somebody dies and there's a big protest and there's a thing starts for it, that 92% of the money raised by this organization does not go to the victim or the cause. It goes to the people. 92, that means 8% of the money goes to what it's worth. So if you make $1 million, I don't know what the hell 8% of $1 million is, but that's all that goes to the cause. The rest goes to the organization. And that don't help nobody. But if you don't like the fact that Roe v. Wade was overturned, if you're a Democrat, and you know damn well the Democrats are going right now, they're sitting in Capitol Hill, and they're brainstorming what laws they can come up with to pretty much institute all of Roe v. Wade, but in separate bills. Then go in November and vote for somebody to do that. If you like that the federal government doesn't have a hand around your throat and can tell you what to do, or whatever, however you look at it, just vote. That's all you can do. Like that's really the only bullet in the gun is the vote. You can't say I don't like it, I'm going to go out, and because you're a Republican or you're a Democrat, I hate you, and because you're a Republican and I'm a Democrat and Roe v. Wade was overturned, you're instantly a bad person. That's why we're in the situation we're in this country, is because people are so goddamn petty. They think that nobody has the ability to think for themselves, and whatever the political establishment does is what everybody in that political affiliation believes. Sorry, rant over.
No, you're good. Well, I guess I'll get into my views here a little, because unlike, I'm going to Google the numbers here before I say a specific amount, but I have a little bit different view, not necessarily on the fact that, again, like Bill said, for the most part here, I'll say that us guys, we have no say in this. Now, I will say that at least unless you're getting, some sort of whatever, I don't even know what they call it, unless you're getting some sort of test tube baby, I'll call it, where you get a donation, a sperm donation, you go through that whole process. There is a guy involved in this process somehow. Now, again, if it's some sort of rape or molestation or whatever, fuck that dude. Just screw him. Throw him in jail, lock the key, throw the key away, bury him at the ocean. Whatever you got to do. Whatever. But if it is some sort of intended pregnancy, right? And the woman goes halfway through and says, "Well, I don't know about this." There was a commitment at one point by both a male and a female, and the male, I think, does have some sort of say at that point, right? Because it takes two to tango, right? It's not just a one-sided party. If it was a one-sided party, I think a lot of this would just be solved at this point. We just say fuck all the guys and let the women do whatever they want to do. But at that point we do have an issue. But regardless, except from that, like Bill said and I discussed earlier, there's no federal law preventing it. And if you want to go to a different state, be my guest. And as a matter of fact, there's a list of companies that will, if you work for them, I know Amazon's on there. I know there was some airline companies on there. There's a whole list of them, and I can find the list again, that will pay for some, if not all, of the travel expenses to go to a different state to do that. And if that's something they want to do, and go right ahead. I'm all for that. But like Bill said, you have if you don't agree with this or you do agree with this, whatever it is, you have that power to do that one thing we call vote. And as a matter of fact, at least around here, we got elections coming up, for at least local candidates, that it starts there. It all starts there. Go out and use that power, because trust me, if each person that's listening to this podcast goes out and votes, they could change 17 different locations in wherever you live. You could change by one vote, 2 votes, however many it is. Shit, how many times did we recount the 2020 election because they weren't sure about how many votes there were? Listen, you stop. Listen, I've said this before, and I think I've even said it on the podcast. You can't bitch if you didn't try to change it, right? If you went out and didn't vote, you're not signed up for it, and then you're bitching about everything, I don't want to hear it, because you had the ability to go out and try to change it. So it's simple as that, right? To me, it's just that simple. But I want to get back, because I'm a little bit different in this case, and I have a little bit different view than most people here. I am one of and I just Googled the numbers. I am one of about 2 to 4%. It says on here. This is from the University of Oregon, so I mean, it's a accredited area. About 2 to 4% of Americans that are adopted, and I am part of that. Now, I wasn't like some of those that go, spend a year with their parents and then they get put up for adoption there. No, I was born, mother never held me, and I was separated right up for adoption immediately. That type of deal. Obviously, I spent some time in a foster home while I was younger, while they were doing all the paperwork and logistics stuff, but regardless of that, it was straight. And this point, I was talking with some family members, as well as some current family members, as well as some friends of mine, because it is a little different. People ask me, well, what are your thoughts on this? And I'm like, well, I really don't know, right? I think that lives do matter, like Bill said, regardless. But at the end of the day, if it's some sort of medical issue or there's a legit concern with something, that needs to be handled, right? That just needs to be handled. That's the way it is. And they're like, well, I would think you would have a one-sided opinion on this, for the fact that you were adopted. You never never met my mother. You know, I did learn a couple years ago that she died. So I will never have that ability. Same with my father. He also passed. So I will never have that ability and never did have that ability to meet them. Never really knew who they were either. So people are always assuming like, well, you would have this really good opinion, you know, one-side opinion that abortion should just be not a thing because then you wouldn't be here. And well, that's true, right? If, you know, my mother, it was kind of an unexpected pregnancy type deal. Not fully. I mean, it was kind of expected, but not really. And they made that decision. As far as I'm aware, was, you know, she already had a son, and it was kind of a later in life deal with my father type, and he had a couple kids, so they didn't really have the financial stability, as far as I'm aware, again, to handle another child. But you know, people always, well, if your mother got an abortion, you wouldn't be sitting here, even though it was kind of unexpected. Well, yeah, that's true. There was no medical reason for it, and so she felt the need to not need it and just put them up for adoption. Now, I'm not saying that adoption and you know, putting every child up for adoption is a great thing, because there are so many kids out there that are sitting in foster homes and bounce back and forth between one foster home to another their entire life. And that's not good. That's not a good life to live. I'm thankful that I didn't have that. But it is a little bit different coming from that aspect of, you know, the second you're born, you're already up for adoption, paperwork's already being done, and all that. You know, it is a little bit different looking at it. Well, if one decision was made and one procedure was done 20, almost 21 years ago, I would not have popped out and said, "Hello, world, how's it going?" So think about that as well. And I'm not trying to sway opinions here, and Bill's not either, but think about all the options, right? Think about the people you know, and Bill made a great point with that Reagan quote. Everyone that's making these decisions are alive. Now, granted, people who aren't alive can't make those decisions. It's, unfortunately, I mean, maybe at some point in like 400 years they'll be able to do that, but granted, there's days where I wish I'd make that decision when I was younger. Like, well, is it really fucking worth it at this point? But
so I don't mean to cut you off. My only point with that statement was people that are against it, against abortions, and your situation brings up a whole new topic of, like, if the baby, if you don't want it, you know, carry it, give it a chance at life, and just give it up. There's safe haven laws. But my point to that Reagan was that even the people that disagree with the overturning of Roe v. Wade, had their parents had an abortion, they wouldn't have had an opinion.
yeah.
You know what I mean? It's not a dig. It's not like I'm saying somebody's a bad guy for it. I'm just saying that the people that are saying, and much like he said, the people that are saying that it's bad or it's good are people that are breathing because their parents finished the cycle.
Yeah.
So, you know, before you get out in the streets and you start acting like an asshole, threatening people, burning buildings down, doing whatever it seems to be popular since 2020, think about that. Like, you know, Matt, you just basically, I mean, you didn't basically, you did just say you were adopted. You know, and if your parents had changed their idea at all in that 9 months or whatever it is before it's unsafe to get an abortion, you wouldn't be sitting here telling people your thoughts on abortions.
Yeah.
You know, and you got a family now that's not your biological family. You have no blood ties to them. But I'll bet you your entire life they loved you and treated you the way that they wanted you to grow up.
Oh, 100%. And
so if you go have sex with somebody right now and that girl gets pregnant and in 2 months says, "Fuck you, Matt, don't want to talk to you ever again. Now I'm stuck with this thing in my stomach. Rip it out." Well, it's not that thing in your stomach's fault that you two had an argument. give birth to it. Let it have a chance at life. Just give it up to somebody. I don't want to raise it. Here, you take it. And the hospital will take it, and it will put it in the government's hands. And there might be a family out there that can't have kids that want kids, and you could end up there. Like,
Yep.
there's so many different ways to think about it. Just don't think about, oh, I didn't want it, kill it. I had a conversation with a person that I work with yesterday that told me that, and I can't believe I'm going to say this, but she still, even with the same partner that she's with, which is a relationship, still has safe sex. Good for her.
Yeah.
But she said that there's a chance that one of them soldiers breaches the wall. Basically means somehow it gets around the condom.
Yeah.
And if she gets pregnant, she wants to have that right to abort that child. And I agree fully that you should have the right to go to a doctor and take care of that situation should it be. But once there is a heartbeat, once that kid has a heartbeat and it's something, that's a human life.
Yeah.
That's murder. In any other form, that is murder.
Yeah.
I can't just go kill somebody because I don't like the way they look, because that's murder. I'm going to jail. So there has to be a point where the doctor says, I'm sorry, you didn't come in soon enough.
Yeah, and I mean,
now you're stuck.
And I'm sure that's going to be argued at some point. It already has been. It'll continue to be, especially now with this. But I'll leave everyone with this final thing, and Bill kind of touched upon it. Think about, when you walk out, before you do anything, think about, just look around. Look at your neighbors. Look at the people walking down the street. Because you never know, right? You never know what happened to them. And this goes for anything, right? You can't judge a book by its cover. You could see me, and you could see my father and my mother, and honestly, we look identical. Not identical, but there are many characteristics between me and the people, the parents that adopted me. Many, you would think we were related by blood. Not a trace. Not an ounce. But you would think that by looking at us. Don't judge a book by its cover. Think before you act, people. Don't be stupid. Just because you have one opinion doesn't mean that's gonna, you could come and say to me, I think abortion should be just banned completely unless they're for an absolute medical necessity. And if that was the case, I wouldn't be standing here sitting and talking with you, talking with Bill. There's no way. It's not, if abortions, again, look, just think of everyone else's. They have their own issues. Everyone's got their own situation and circumstances. And again, I'm not saying that, adoption is 100% an answer, because again, there are so many people out there, and kids until age 18 or 21, whatever it is, I don't actually know at this point, where they're cut free on their own, have a horrible life because they're bouncing foster home to foster home. But on the other hand, there's people like me that got lucky to have great people and have a normal life. Just think about that. I'll leave you there, and just think about all that.
Well, it's going to be hard to transition into the closing for this, but we got to go ahead and do that.
Yeah, and yeah. Anywho, thank you for tuning into this episode. I know it's a very politically based one. Everyone's got their own opinion on everything, regardless if it's about the gun laws, Roe v. Wade, anything in the world. Everyone's got an opinion on it, and that's just what it is. And everyone's entitled to that opinion. Just make sure that you're respectful when saying that, because you never know. You just never know. Bill, you got any final thoughts on today?
Well, not really, because I think we covered it, but I'm going to say this, and just so people know that when we do these shows, we format it on a sheet where we follow a format so we know what topic we're going into next. We don't cover what we're going to talk about, because that's the gold in the mind that we do here. Like, I don't know what Matt's going to say, and he don't know what I'm going to say. But there's a normal thing we do at the end of everything, which Matt alluded to, 2 episodes ago? That's his favorite line. I'm going to cut that a little short just because it's a very touchy subject, and you're probably either really happy or really pissed off with us, even if you're listening at this point. But we're gonna cut her a little bit on the slim side on this one. At least I am, because I don't want to go from talking about this to trying to be upbeat about it. So I'll try to, piss on the flower a little.
Yeah. And I'll say this, to close it off and kind of end this episode. Regardless of what you think, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your opinions, because again, everyone's got one. Everyone's entitled to it, and if it's respectful, we want to hear about it, because that's how, communication is one of the key factors to solving issues. And whether you look at this as an issue or not, or anything as an issue or not, at some point you're going to have to communicate with others to let them know. So if you have thoughts on this, if you want to tell us those thoughts, I'm sure we're going to be talking about this again, because unfortunately it's just there's going to be a downfall at this point. There's something more is going to come out. It always does. Again, this is the second time we've talked about it in 12 episodes, so it's bound to come up again. But if you have something you want to tell us, you have comments on this, whatever, let us know. Whether it be via email, whether it be reaching out in a comment on the YouTube section or in our Discord. Whatever it is, let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And with that being said, we're going to wrap it up today. And we'll see you on Thursday for our unscripted episode. And I'm sure this will find its way in there as well at some point. So with that being said, we'll see you Thursday for another episode. And hope you guys enjoy the week. Have a good week to start off. And stay safe. Be smart. Don't do stupid things. And think before you act. Think of everyone else's situations. But with that being said, we'll see you Thursday. Have a great one, guys.
Later.